26-year-old white woman adopts 14 black kids. Years later, the unthinkable happens when biological aunt reveals shocking truth. Sarah Coleman had always dreamed of having a big family. Growing up as an only child in a small Midwestern town, she yearned for the chaos and laughter that came with siblings. At 26, Sarah found herself in a position to make that dream a reality, though not in the way she had initially imagined. After graduating with a degree in social work, Sarah began her career at a local foster care agency. Her passion for helping children in need quickly became apparent, and she excelled in her role. However, the more she worked with these vulnerable kids, the more she realized that her calling went beyond just being their caseworker. Sarah's decision to adopt came gradually, but once the idea took root, it consumed her. She began the process of becoming a licensed foster parent, determined to provide a loving home for children who needed it most. Her friends and family were supportive, but concerned about her taking on such a massive responsibility at such a young age. What no one expected, least of all Sarah, was that she would end up adopting not 1 or 2, but 14 African-American children over the course of 3 years. Each child came with their own unique story and challenges, but Sarah was determined to give them all the love and stability they deserved. The Coleman household quickly became a whirlwind of activity. From toddlers to teenagers, Sarah's children ranged in age from 2 to 17. There was Jamal, the oldest, who had a talent for music and a protective streak for his younger siblings. Then came twins Keisha and Kendra, inseparable and full of mischief. Little Marcus, barely out of diapers, had already survived more trauma than most adults. And there was Zoe, whose smile could light up a room despite her past hardships. Sarah's life transformed overnight. Her days were filled with school runs, doctor's appointments, homework help, and endless loads of laundry. Nights were a juggling act of bedtime stories, heart-to-heart talks with her older kids, and preparing for the next day. It was exhausting, but Sarah had never felt more fulfilled. As a single white mother to 14 black children, Sarah faced her fair share of challenges and criticism. Some questioned her motives, while others doubted her ability to provide culturally appropriate care. But Sarah was committed to educating herself and ensuring her children remained connected to their heritage. She sought out mentors from the black community, enrolled her kids in cultural programs, and worked tirelessly to create an environment where they could thrive and embrace their identities. 5 years into her journey as a mother of 14, Sarah's world was turned upside down. It began with a seemingly innocuous phone call from Jamal's high school principal. Sarah expected it to be about his recent academic achievements, or perhaps his upcoming music recital. Instead, the principal's voice was grave as he asked Sarah to come in for an urgent meeting. Heart racing, Sarah arranged for a neighbor to watch the younger kids and drove to the school. As she walked into the principal's office, she was met with stern faces of not only the principal, but also a police officer and a representative from Child Protective Services. "Miss Coleman," the principal began, his voice heavy with concern, "we've received some troubling information that we need to discuss with you." Over the next hour, Sarah listened in horror as they laid out a series of allegations against her. Anonymous reports had been filed, claiming neglect and abuse within the Coleman household. The accusations ranged from inadequate food and clothing to physical mistreatment and emotional manipulation. Sarah's mind reeled. She vehemently denied the allegations, insisting that her children were well cared for and loved. But as the meeting progressed, it became clear that this was more than just a misunderstanding. The authorities were taking the claims seriously, and an investigation was already underway. "We'll need to interview all of your children," the CPS representative explained, her tone professional but tinged with sympathy. "In the meantime, we're going to have to ask you to leave the home while we conduct our investigation." The words hit Sarah like a physical blow. Leave her home? Leave her children? The very thought was unbearable. She argued, pleaded, and tried to reason with them, but the decision had already been made. For the safety of the children, Sarah would have to stay with a friend or relative until the investigation was complete. As she left the school, Sarah's mind raced. Who could have made these accusations? And why? She thought of her children, imagining their confusion and fear when strangers came to question them. The thought of not being there to comfort them, to explain what was happening, tore at her heart. Sarah spent the night at her parents' house, barely sleeping as she worried about her children. The next morning, she received a call from her lawyer, who had been hastily hired the previous evening. The news was grim. Based on the initial interviews with the children, the authorities had decided to temporarily remove all 14 kids from Sarah's care. The following days were a blur of legal meetings, supervised visits with her children, and sleepless nights. Sarah watched helplessly as her family was torn apart, her children placed in separate foster homes across the county. The older ones, like Jamal and the twins, understood enough to be angry and scared. The younger ones, especially little Marcus, were simply confused and heartbroken. During one of the supervised visits, Zoe clung to Sarah, sobbing. "Why can't we come home, Mama?" she asked, her voice muffled against Sarah's shirt. "We'll be good, I promise." Sarah fought back her own tears as she tried to explain the situation in terms a child could understand. But how do you tell a child that sometimes, even when you've done nothing wrong, bad things can happen? As the investigation continued, Sarah's life became a whirlwind of court appearances, meetings with social workers, and desperate attempts to prove her innocence. She underwent psychological evaluations, opened her home to countless inspections, and provided mountains of documentation about her children's care. Through it all, Sarah clung to the hope that the truth would come out. She knew in her heart that she had always acted in her children's best interests. The love she had for them was real and deep, transcending blood ties and racial boundaries. But as weeks turned into months and her children remained out of her care, Sarah began to fear that love might not be enough to bring her family back together. 3 months into the investigation, a breakthrough finally came. Sarah's lawyer called her with news that sent shockwaves through her already fragile world. The source of the anonymous allegations had been identified. It was Jamal's biological aunt, Tanisha. Tanisha had never approved of Jamal's adoption by a white woman. She had fought the adoption initially, but lost due to her own unstable living situation and history of substance abuse. Over the years, she had gotten clean and turned her life around, harboring resentment towards Sarah and believing that she could now provide a better home for Jamal. What Tanisha hadn't counted on was the depth of the investigation her false allegations would trigger. As the authorities dug deeper, they uncovered evidence that Tanisha had fabricated the abuse claims, going so far as to coach some of the children on what to say during their interviews. This revelation sent the case into a tailspin. The prosecutor's office was now faced with the daunting task of unraveling which parts of the children's testimonies were genuine and which had been influenced by Tanisha's manipulation. Sarah was overwhelmed with a mixture of relief, anger, and renewed hope. The truth was finally coming to light, but the damage had already been done. Her children had been traumatized, their lives disrupted, and the bonds of trust within their family strained. As the legal proceedings shifted focus to Tanisha's actions, Sarah was granted increased visitation with her children. During these visits, she began the delicate process of explaining the situation to them, tailoring her words to each child's age and understanding. Jamal, now aware of his aunt's role in the family's ordeal, was torn between anger at the betrayal and a complex mix of emotions regarding his biological family. Sarah worked hard to support him through this, reminding him that it was okay to have conflicted feelings and that she would love him no matter what. The younger children, while happy to see Sarah more often, struggled to understand why they still couldn't go home. Sarah's heart broke each time she had to say goodbye, knowing the confusion and pain her little ones were experiencing. As the truth unfolded, Sarah also had to confront her own feelings about Tanisha's actions. While part of her was furious at the woman who had nearly destroyed her family, another part understood the pain and desperation that might drive someone to such lengths. It was a stark reminder of the complex emotions often involved in adoption cases, especially transracial ones. The revelation about Tanisha's involvement opened up new avenues for Sarah's legal team. They now had grounds to challenge the entire basis of the investigation and push for the quick reunification of the Coleman family. However, they also knew that the road ahead would not be easy. The system, once set in motion, was slow to change course, even in the face of new evidence. As Sarah absorbed the implications of this discovery, she steeled herself for the battles yet to come. The truth was out, but the fight to bring her children home was far from over. In the wake of the revelation about Tanisha's false allegations, Sarah faced a crucial decision that would shape the future of her family. She could pursue aggressive legal action against Tanisha, potentially speeding up the process of reuniting with her children, but also risking further trauma and division. Alternatively, she could take a more conciliatory approach, focusing on healing and reunification rather than retribution. After days of soul-searching and consultations with her lawyer, therapist, and trusted friends, Sarah made her choice. She decided to prioritize her children's well-being and the long-term health of her family over the immediate satisfaction of seeing Tanisha punished. Sarah's decision was not an easy one. Part of her wanted justice, wanted Tanisha to face consequences for the pain she had caused. But Sarah realized that a drawn-out legal battle would only prolong her separation from her children and potentially create more trauma for them. Instead, Sarah chose to work with her lawyer to craft a proposal for the court. She would agree not to press charges against Tanisha if the court would expedite the process of returning her children to her care. Additionally, Sarah proposed a supervised visitation schedule that would allow Jamal to maintain a relationship with his biological aunt under strict conditions to ensure his safety and well-being. The consequences of this decision were immediate and far-reaching. Some of Sarah's friends and family members were outraged, feeling that Tanisha deserved punishment for her actions. Sarah's parents, in particular, struggled to understand her choice, leading to tension in their relationship. The legal process, while expedited, was still complex. Sarah had to undergo additional parenting classes and agree to unannounced home visits for a probationary period. She also committed to family therapy sessions to help her children process their experiences and rebuild trust. Perhaps the most challenging consequence was explaining her decision to her children, especially Jamal. When Sarah gently told him about the visitation plan with Tanisha, his reaction was a mix of confusion, anger, and fear. "Why should I see her?" Jamal demanded, his voice cracking with emotion. "She's the reason we were all split up." Sarah took a deep breath, choosing her words carefully. "I know it's hard to understand, sweetheart. What your aunt did was wrong, but she's still family. I think it's important for you to have a chance to talk to her, to ask questions if you want to, but only if and when you're ready. And I'll be there with you every step of the way." This conversation was the first of many difficult ones Sarah would have with her children as they began the process of coming home. Each child reacted differently to the news of their impending return. Some, like the younger ones, were simply overjoyed. Others, particularly the older children who understood more of what had happened, were more cautious in their reactions. As the children began to return home, Sarah faced the monumental task of rebuilding their family dynamic. The months of separation had taken their toll. Some of the children had regressed in their behaviors, while others had developed new fears and insecurities. Trust, once implicit, now had to be consciously rebuilt. Sarah's decision also had consequences in her community. Some neighbors, who had been skeptical of her ability to raise so many children of a different race, saw the investigation as confirmation of their doubts. Sarah found herself and her children subjected to whispers and stares when they ventured out in public. However, there were also unexpected positive consequences. A support group for transracial adoptive families reached out to Sarah, offering resources and community. Local church groups rallied around the family, providing meals and childcare support as Sarah worked to reestablish routines. The most profound consequence of Sarah's decision was internal. By choosing compassion and forgiveness over retribution, she set an example for her children about handling adversity and conflict. It opened up conversations about empathy, justice, and the complexities of family relationships that would shape her children's worldviews for years to come. As the weeks passed and the family settled back into a semblance of normalcy, Sarah often reflected on her decision. There were moments of doubt, especially on hard days when the children's trauma manifested in challenging behaviors. But every time she saw her family together, every shared meal and bedtime story reaffirmed her belief that she had made the right choice. The road ahead was long, and Sarah knew there would be more obstacles to overcome. But she was committed to guiding her family through this journey with love, patience, and an unwavering belief in the power of forgiveness and second chances. As Sarah focused on reuniting and healing her family, a secondary plot began to unfold, centering around Jamal's growing interest in his biological roots and cultural identity. Now 18 and preparing for college, Jamal found himself grappling with questions about his heritage and place in the world. This journey of self-discovery was sparked by a school project on genealogy. While his classmates delved into their family histories, Jamal realized how little he knew about his own biological family beyond the recent drama with his aunt Tanisha. This realization led him to approach Sarah with a request that would add another layer of complexity to their family dynamic. "Mom," Jamal said one evening, his voice a mix of hesitation and determination, "I want to learn more about my birth parents and where I come from. Is that okay?" Sarah, though caught off guard, responded with the openness and support that had always characterized her parenting. "Of course it's okay, Jamal. Your history is part of who you are. How can I help?" Together, they began researching Jamal's family tree, a process that brought both excitement and challenges. Sarah reached out to the adoption agency for any available information, while Jamal cautiously initiated contact with Tanisha, hoping she could fill in some blanks. As Jamal delved deeper into his roots, he also became more involved in African American cultural activities at school and in the community. He joined the Black Student Union, attended cultural events, and even started learning Swahili, inspired by discovering that his great-grandparents had immigrated from East Africa. This exploration had a ripple effect on the rest of the Coleman children. Many of them, seeing Jamal's journey, began asking questions about their own backgrounds. Sarah found herself navigating a complex web of emotions and identities, striving to support each child's individual path while maintaining the strong family bond they shared. The process wasn't always smooth. There were tense moments, like when Jamal expressed frustration with Sarah's inability to fully understand his experiences as a young Black man. "You can't know what it's like, Mom," he said during one heated discussion about racial profiling. "You've never had to worry about being stopped by the police just because of how you look." Sarah listened, acknowledging her limitations, but also reaffirming her commitment to learning and supporting her children. She reached out to Black community leaders and educators, seeking guidance on how to better support her children's cultural identities. This secondary plotline also brought new characters into the Coleman family's orbit. Jamal's exploration led him to connect with a cousin on his father's side, Marcus, who lived in a neighboring state. Marcus's initial skepticism about Jamal's adoptive family gradually gave way to respect for Sarah's dedication to her children. As Jamal's high school graduation approached, the family found themselves planning not just a celebration of his academic achievements, but also a ceremony that honored his cultural heritage. Sarah worked with Jamal and his newfound relatives to incorporate traditional African elements into the celebration, symbolizing the blending of his past and present. This secondary plot added depth to the family's story, highlighting the ongoing challenges and rewards of transracial adoption. It showcased Sarah's growth as a parent, her willingness to support her children's individual journeys, even when they led in unexpected directions. Most importantly, it illustrated the Coleman family's ability to adapt, grow, and strengthen their bonds in the face of new challenges. As the Coleman family navigated the aftermath of their separation and Jamal's exploration of his roots, the relationships within the household underwent significant transformations. The shared trauma had created new bonds while testing others, leading to a complex web of evolving connections. Sarah's relationship with each of her children shifted in unique ways. With Jamal, there was a new level of openness and vulnerability. Their conversations about race, identity, and belonging became more frequent and deeper. Sarah learned to listen more and advise less, recognizing that sometimes Jamal needed her to simply understand rather than try to fix things. "I'm proud of you, Mom," Jamal said one evening after a particularly honest discussion. "I know this isn't easy for you, but you're really trying to understand." Sarah's eyes welled with tears. "I love you, Jamal. All I've ever wanted is for you to be happy and know who you are." With the twins, Keisha and Kendra, now 16, Sarah found herself navigating the turbulent waters of adolescence compounded by their recent trauma. The girls, once inseparable, had grown apart during their time in separate foster homes. Sarah worked tirelessly to help them rebuild their bond while also encouraging their individual growth. One breakthrough came during a family art therapy session. As they painted together, Keisha suddenly burst into tears. "I missed you so much," she sobbed, turning to her sister. Kendra, usually the more reserved of the two, pulled her into a tight hug. Sarah watched, her heart full, as the sisters began to heal. Little Marcus, now 7, had perhaps been the most deeply affected by the separation. He had regressed in some behaviors and developed separation anxiety, rarely letting Sarah out of his sight. Sarah patiently worked with him, establishing routines and reassurances to help him feel secure again. "Mama, you won't leave again, right?" Marcus would ask, his small hand clutching hers. "I'm right here, baby," Sarah would respond, pulling him close. "And I'm not going anywhere." Zoe, always the peacemaker of the family, took on a new role as a bridge between siblings. At 12, she showed a maturity beyond her years, often mediating conflicts and offering comfort to her brothers and sisters. Sarah made sure to carve out one-on-one time with Zoe, recognizing her need for support even as she supported others. The relationships between the siblings also evolved. The older children became more protective of their younger siblings, while the younger ones looked up to their older brothers and sisters with a new appreciation. Family game nights, once chaotic affairs, took on a new significance as opportunities to reconnect and create new, positive memories. Sarah's relationship with her own parents underwent a transformation as well. Initially strained by their disagreement over her decision not to pursue legal action against Tanisha, they gradually came to understand and respect Sarah's choice. Her father, in particular, became a staunch advocate for the family, often defending them against community gossip and criticism. "I didn't always understand your choices, Sarah," he admitted one day, "but seeing how you've held this family together, I couldn't be more proud to be your dad." Perhaps the most complex relationship development was between the Coleman family and Tanisha. As per the agreement, supervised visits with Jamal began, tentatively at first. Sarah attended these meetings, pushing aside her own feelings to support her son. Over time, a cautious rapport developed between Sarah and Tanisha, built on their shared love for Jamal. During one visit, Tanisha turned to Sarah, her eyes filled with remorse. "I was wrong about you," she said softly. "You're a good mother to Jamal, to all of them." Sarah nodded, not quite ready to forgive, but acknowledging the olive branch. "They're my world," she replied simply. As months passed, the Coleman household found a new rhythm. Family therapy sessions became a regular part of their routine, providing a safe space to address lingering fears and resentments. Sarah worked hard to create an environment where all emotions were valid and could be expressed openly. Through it all, the core of love that had always defined the Coleman family grew stronger. The challenges they had faced, while painful, had ultimately brought them closer together. They emerged not as a perfect family, but as a resilient one, bound by love, understanding, and a shared history that now included both joy and sorrow. As Sarah tucked the youngest children into bed one night, she paused in the hallway, listening to the sounds of her home: Jamal's music, the twins' laughter, Zoe reading a story to Marcus. In that moment, she knew that despite everything, they were going to be okay. The climactic event of the Coleman family's journey came unexpectedly, nearly a year after the children had returned home. It was Jamal's 19th birthday, and Sarah had planned a special celebration, incorporating elements of his newfound cultural heritage alongside family traditions. The day started joyfully, with the younger children excitedly decorating the house with a mix of balloons and African-inspired fabrics. Sarah spent the morning preparing Jamal's favorite foods, including a recipe for jollof rice she had learned from a Nigerian friend. As evening approached, guests began to arrive. There was a mix of Jamal's friends from school, neighbors who had supported the family through their ordeal, and even a few of Jamal's biological relatives, including his aunt Tanisha. The atmosphere was festive but slightly tense, given the complex history between some of the attendees. The party was in full swing when Sarah noticed Jamal slip away from the crowd. Concerned, she followed him to the quiet of the back porch. She found him staring into the distance, his expression unreadable. "Jamal, is everything okay?" Sarah asked gently. He turned to her, his eyes glistening with unshed tears. "Mom, I got a letter today, from my birth father." Sarah's heart raced. This was unexpected and potentially life-changing news. "What does it say?" she asked, trying to keep her voice calm. "He wants to meet me," Jamal replied, his voice a mix of emotions. "He says he's sorry for not being there, that he didn't know about me until recently. He wants a chance to explain." The weight of this revelation hung in the air between them. Sarah's mind whirled with implications and potential outcomes, but she forced herself to focus on Jamal's needs in this moment. "How do you feel about that?" she asked carefully. Jamal's response was interrupted by a commotion from inside the house. They rushed back to find Tanisha in a heated argument with one of Jamal's friends who had made an insensitive comment about adoption. The situation quickly escalated, with other guests taking sides. The younger Coleman children watched wide-eyed as adults they trusted raised their voices. It was a powder keg of unresolved tensions and complex emotions, threatening to undo months of healing. In that chaotic moment, Jamal's voice suddenly cut through the noise. "Stop," he shouted, his tone commanding attention. The room fell silent, all eyes turning to him. Jamal stood tall, his gaze sweeping across the room. "This is not what family is about," he said firmly. "Not my adoptive family, not my birth family, not this community we've built. We're better than this." He moved to stand beside Sarah, taking her hand. "This woman chose to be my mother. She chose all of us, and we chose her back. That doesn't erase where we came from, but it defines where we're going." Turning to Tanisha, he continued, "Aunt Tanisha, you're part of my history, and I want you in my future too. But you have to accept all of me, including this family." The room remained silent as Jamal's words sank in. Sarah squeezed his hand, overwhelmed with pride and love for the man her son had become. Slowly, the tension in the room dissipated. Tanisha, tears in her eyes, stepped forward to hug Jamal, then turned to Sarah with a nod of respect. Others in the room began to mingle again, this time with a new sense of understanding and unity. As the party resumed, now with a deeper sense of celebration, Sarah realized they had just witnessed a turning point. In rising to meet this moment, Jamal had not only affirmed his place in the family, but had also shown a path forward for all of them. In the wake of Jamal's powerful speech at his birthday party, the Coleman family entered a new phase of their journey, one focused on active conflict resolution and healing. Sarah recognized that while the climactic event had brought many issues to the surface, it also presented an opportunity to address them head-on. The first step was a family meeting the day after the party. Sarah gathered all 14 children in the living room, creating a safe space for everyone to express their feelings about recent events. She started by acknowledging the elephant in the room, Jamal's birth father's letter. "I know this affects all of us," Sarah began, her voice steady despite her inner turmoil. "We're a family, and what happens to one of us happens to all of us. I want everyone to feel free to share their thoughts and feelings about this." The responses were varied and emotional. Some of the younger children expressed fear that Jamal might leave them. The twins, Keisha and Kendra, were curious but cautious, remembering the pain caused by Tanisha's actions. Zoe, ever the empath, was concerned about how this would affect Sarah. Jamal listened to his siblings, visibly moved by their reactions. When it was his turn to speak, he addressed each of their concerns with a maturity that made Sarah's heart swell with pride. "I'm not going anywhere," he assured them. "You're my family. Meeting my birth father doesn't change that. But I think I need to do this, for me, and maybe for all of us, to understand where I come from." Sarah nodded, adding, "And we'll support you every step of the way, Jamal, all of us." This open dialogue set the tone for the conflict resolution process. Sarah worked with a family therapist to develop strategies for addressing the complex emotions and relationships within their unique family dynamic. One key aspect was rebuilding trust, not just between Sarah and the children, but among the siblings themselves. The months of separation had strained some bonds, and the recent revelations added new complications. Sarah instituted trust-building days, where siblings were paired up for activities designed to foster communication and understanding. Another focus was on cultural education and celebration. Inspired by Jamal's journey, Sarah made it a priority to help each child explore their cultural heritage. She organized visits to cultural centers, invited community leaders to speak with the family, and incorporated diverse traditions into their daily life. The process of conflict resolution extended beyond the immediate family. Sarah reached out to Tanisha, recognizing that healing this relationship was crucial for Jamal's well-being and the family's peace. It wasn't easy. The hurt and mistrust ran deep on both sides, but they committed to regular meetings with a mediator. During one of these sessions, Tanisha broke down. "I was so wrong," she admitted, tears streaming down her face. "I thought I was fighting for Jamal, but I was only thinking of myself. I nearly destroyed this beautiful family." Sarah, moved by Tanisha's sincerity, found herself offering forgiveness. "We all make mistakes," she said softly. "What matters is how we make amends and move forward." This breakthrough with Tanisha opened the door for more positive interactions with other biological relatives of the children. Sarah worked to create a network of extended family, believing that more love and support could only benefit her children. The most challenging aspect of the conflict resolution process came when it was time for Jamal to meet his birth father, Michael. Sarah struggled with her own emotions, fear of losing Jamal, uncertainty about Michael's intentions, and a fierce protectiveness for her son. The day of the meeting arrived, and Sarah drove Jamal to the agreed-upon location, a neutral coffee shop. As they sat in the car, Sarah turned to her son. "Remember, you're in control here. If at any point you feel uncomfortable or want to leave, just say the word." Jamal nodded, then surprised Sarah by pulling her into a tight hug. "Thank you, Mom, for everything." Sarah watched as Jamal entered the coffee shop, her heart a mix of pride and apprehension. She had offered to go in with him, but Jamal had decided to meet Michael alone first. It was the longest hour of Sarah's life. When Jamal emerged, his expression was unreadable. As soon as he got in the car, Sarah asked, "How did it go?" Jamal was quiet for a moment, processing. Then he said, "It was good, I think. Weird, but good." He explained why he wasn't around, apologized a lot. "He wants to get to know me." Sarah nodded, waiting for more. Jamal continued, "But I told him that while I'm open to having a relationship with him, he needs to understand that I already have a family, a mom who chose me, siblings who are a part of me. That's not negotiable." Tears welled in Sarah's eyes as she listened to her son's words. In that moment, she realized that their conflict resolution attempts had borne fruit. The challenges they had faced had not broken them, but had instead forged stronger, more resilient bonds. As they drove home, Sarah reflected on their journey. The road ahead would still have its bumps, but she was confident that they had the tools and the love to navigate whatever came their way. The Coleman family was not just surviving, they were thriving, growing stronger with each resolved conflict and each new understanding. The meeting between Jamal and his birth father, Michael, marked a significant turning point for the Coleman family. It opened up new possibilities and challenges, setting them on a path that would redefine their understanding of family and belonging. In the weeks following the meeting, Sarah observed a change in Jamal. He seemed more grounded, more at peace with his identity. This newfound confidence had a ripple effect on the other children, especially those who were also adopted. They began to ask more questions about their own backgrounds, inspired by Jamal's journey. Recognizing this shift, Sarah made a bold decision. She gathered the family for another meeting, this time with an unexpected proposal. "I've been thinking," she began, looking around at the faces of her children. "Jamal's experience has shown us how important it is to understand where we come from. So, I want to propose something. How would you all feel about taking a family trip? A journey to explore everyone's roots?" The room erupted with a mix of excitement and apprehension. The idea was ambitious, considering the diverse backgrounds of the children and the logistical challenges of traveling with such a large family. But Sarah was determined. "It won't be easy," she acknowledged, "but I think it's important. We'll learn about each other's cultures, maybe meet some biological relatives if that's possible and desired. But most importantly, we'll do it together, as a family." This proposal marked a new direction for the Colemans. It was no longer just about coping with past traumas or navigating present challenges. It was about actively embracing their unique family identity and using their diversity as a strength. The planning process itself became a bonding experience. Maps were spread across the dining room table as they traced ancestral lines across continents. The children researched their heritage, sharing discoveries with excitement. Even the youngest ones got involved, drawing pictures of the places they hoped to visit. Sarah worked tirelessly to make the trip a reality, coordinating with adoption agencies, cultural organizations, and even reaching out to biological family members who were open to meeting. It was a complex undertaking, but she was driven by the conviction that this journey would be transformative for her family. As the plans took shape, Sarah realized that this trip represented more than just a vacation. It was a statement, to themselves and to the world, about the nature of family. They were choosing to confront their complicated history head-on, to celebrate their differences while reinforcing the bonds that held them together. The Colemans were embarking on a new chapter, one that would challenge them, but also offer incredible opportunities for growth and understanding. As Sarah watched her children's enthusiasm grow, she felt a sense of hope and excitement for the journey ahead. As the Coleman family prepared for their ambitious journey to explore their roots, Sarah found herself reflecting on the incredible growth she had witnessed in her children and in herself over the past year. Jamal, now 19 and preparing for college, had blossomed into a confident young man with a strong sense of identity. His journey to connect with his birth father had not only brought him peace, but had also strengthened his bond with Sarah. One evening, as they worked on college applications, Jamal turned to her with a smile. "You know, Mom, meeting Michael made me realize something," he said. "It's not about blood, it's about choice, and I'm so glad you chose us." Sarah's eyes welled with tears as she pulled him into a hug. "Oh, Jamal, you all chose me too, every single day." The twins, Keisha and Kendra, had worked through their period of estrangement and emerged stronger for it. They had developed a new appreciation for their individual identities while maintaining their close bond. Sarah noticed how they now stood up for each other and their siblings at school, proud of their family's diversity. Zoe, at 13, had grown into her role as the family mediator with grace and empathy. She had started a club at school for adoptees and foster children, creating a space for others to share their experiences. Sarah couldn't help but beam with pride when Zoe's teacher called to commend her for her compassion and leadership. Even little Marcus, once so traumatized by their separation, had made remarkable progress. His nightmares had subsided, and he had become more independent. The day he confidently walked into his classroom without looking back for reassurance, Sarah felt a mixture of joy and wistfulness at her baby growing up. Sarah herself had undergone significant personal growth. The challenges she had faced had tested her in ways she never imagined, but they had also revealed a strength and resilience she didn't know she possessed. She had learned to advocate fiercely for her children while also acknowledging her own limitations and seeking help when needed. Her relationship with Tanisha, once fraught with tension and mistrust, had evolved into a cautious alliance. They weren't friends, exactly, but they had found common ground in their love for Jamal and the other children. Sarah reflected on their last conversation, where Tanisha had surprised her. "You're doing an amazing job with these kids, Sarah," Tanisha had said. "I see now what Jamal meant about family being about choice." The journey of the past year had also deepened Sarah's understanding of race and identity. She had become more proactive in educating herself about African American history and culture, recognizing the importance of this knowledge in raising her children. She had built relationships with mentors in the Black community who could offer guidance and perspective she couldn't provide on her own. As Sarah packed for their upcoming trip, she came across a photo album from their early days as a family. Flipping through the pages, she was struck by how much had changed and how much had remained the same. The love that radiated from those early photos was still there, but it had been tempered by experience, strengthened by adversity. She paused on a recent family photo taken at Jamal's graduation. All 14 children surrounded her, a vibrant tapestry of ages and shades. Sarah traced her finger over each face, remembering the individual journeys that had brought them to this point. The upcoming trip represented not just an exploration of their pasts, but a statement about their future. They were choosing to embrace the complexity of their family story, to face the difficult questions and uncomfortable truths head-on. As she closed the album, Sarah felt a sense of peace wash over her. The road hadn't been easy, and she knew there would be more challenges ahead. But looking at how far they had come, how much they had grown individually and as a family, she felt ready for whatever lay ahead. "We've got this," she whispered to herself, a mantra that had carried her through the toughest times. The sound of laughter drifted up from downstairs, where the children were helping each other pack. Sarah smiled, feeling a surge of love and gratitude. They had weathered the storm together and emerged stronger, wiser, and more united than ever before. With a deep breath, Sarah stood up, ready to join her children in preparing for their next adventure. The journey ahead was uncertain, but one thing was clear. They would face it as they had faced everything else. Together, as a family, bound by love, choice, and an unbreakable spirit. As the Coleman family boarded their flight for the first leg of their journey, Sarah took a moment to look at each of her children. From Jamal, now a young adult embarking on his own life journey, to little Marcus, clutching his favorite stuffed animal with excitement, each face told a story of resilience, growth, and love. The past year had tested them in ways they never could have imagined. They had faced separation, doubt, and the complex emotions that come with exploring identity and belonging. But through it all, they had emerged stronger, their bonds deeper than ever before. As the plane took off, Sarah reflected on the true meaning of family. It wasn't about blood ties or legal documents. It wasn't even about the color of their skin or the circumstances of their births. Family, she realized, was about choice. The daily decision to love, support, and stand by one another, no matter what. Their upcoming journey was more than just a trip to explore their roots. It was a testament to their commitment to each other, a celebration of their unique family tapestry. Each destination would add another thread to their shared story, enriching their understanding of themselves and each other. As the city below faded from view, Sarah felt a profound sense of gratitude and hope. The road ahead might be uncertain, but she knew that together they could face anything. They were the Colemans, a family bound by love, strengthened by adversity, and united in their diversity. With a smile, Sarah turned to her children, ready to embark on their next chapter together. The adventure was just beginning, and the best was yet to come.